ministries then are audited at a certain time of the year in accordance with the provisions in the Constitution, because they are supposed to produce financial statements, and these financial statements are then certified by the Auditor General and submitted to the National Assembly. Secondly, reports are generated on the activities of all the ministries and submitted to the National Assembly. Secondly, there is a directorate, for instance, that takes care of parastatals and statutory institutions. So this directorate then also has a program specifically for these institutions. And there is another directorate, like my colleague has mentioned, there are actually 10 directorates, so to speak. So they take care of audits in the provinces. So if you look at the division, then every part of government is taken care of, and there is a directorate that is assigned to make sure that those institutions are audited, and are audited in accordance with the Constitution. So through these audits, we then see that it's not, if it was just an audit that would end in an audit and then we ask, so what, and there's nothing, no benefit at all, then it wouldn't be worth undertaking. But we must highlight the fact that through these audits we identify issues that are then attended to, and the implementation of the Appropriation Act is improved. Some of the issues, if you look at some of the issues that come out in the Auditor General's report, yes, unfortunately there are issues that are repeated year in and year out. But we must also appreciate the fact that through these audits we have seen certain improvements in certain areas. Some of the issues that I may highlight in terms of improvements, you will see that the levels of unretired, for instance, unretired accountable interest have gone down. We have seen that when we talk about stores, government stores that were not accounted for, through our reports and consistency in reporting on those issues, we see a reduction in those. We see situations where projects have been going on almost forever, but through our audits, consistently reporting on those issues, we see projects that were almost abandoned completed. We also see situations where government funds are misappropriated, but because the Auditor General consistently bring out those issues, those funds are recovered. So this then shows you there is relevance in terms of what the Auditor General does. These resources basically are not supposed to be used by individuals. They are resources that are for common use, resources for all the citizens. And so the Auditor General, in carrying out the audit activities, he should demonstrate this relevance to the citizens who are the beneficiaries of the programs that government implements.
You are watching the Auditor and You radio and television program on all our platforms. It's the Parliament Radio, Parliament Television, including our Facebook page and the YouTube page. Today we're just basically looking at generally what the Auditor General's office is all about, and I'm privileged to have with me in the studios Mr. Shadrack Chitumbo, who is the Director, Ministry of Appropriations Audit Directorate, and Ms. Cynthia Matiba, the Chief Planner. Having talked about what the Auditor General office is, and also having explained the mandate of the Auditor General's office, and Madam Matimba also did explain about the office and how you are structured across the country, and also the directorates. And just maybe I would want you to perhaps just give us a bit more of confidence from the office why auditing is important with regards to promoting transparency and accountability.
Okay. So like I mentioned earlier on, that if you look at the fact that the resources that are provided for in the Appropriation Act, these resources are supposed to benefit everyone, the citizens of this country. So we all have an interest in these resources, and so how they are spent, the citizens have an interest. So the citizens, as citizens of this country, we are not able to go and go to the Ministry of Education and say, how have you spent the money? And so there is an institution, the Office of the Auditor General, which is established to make sure that funds are spent according to what was provided for in the Appropriation Act. And so by the Auditor General going to check how the funds are used and writing a report, they are providing that assurance that these funds are used in accordance with the Appropriation Act. And so this kind of builds confidence that even though we are paying taxes, our taxes are used in a certain way. You can imagine a situation that no one was going to check on how the resources are used by the people, that the public officers that we entrust them with. But the Auditor General then provides that independent assurance. Okay, we provide that independent check and confirm that indeed what we are told, that the resources were used to build a bridge here, where indeed a bridge has been constructed. And in our audit processes, we even visit and carry out physical verifications of those. You have seen that in the past we have had reports where public officers report that they have constructed a bridge across a river, and when the auditors go there, where is the bridge? You find there's no bridge. And then the Auditor General has a responsibility to report, and report things in the way that they have found them. In other words, we would report exactly the way things are. So that is, by doing that, that enhances accountability and transparency. It means that the public officers know and realize that whatever we do, Auditor General's office will come and check and confirm whether indeed we have done what we are supposed to do.
Okay. And getting that the Office of the Auditor General has undergone in to the 8th National Development Plan. So how does your organization fit into the 8th National Development Plan?
Okay. So we've in the development of our strategic plan, we've ensured that it's aligned to the 8th National Development Plan. So if just from what my colleague explained in terms of our mandate, we are responsible for providing audits to all public entities. So in that regard, our aim is to promote transparency and accountability. And if you know, transparency National Development Plan and Environment. The plan has been prepared in such a way that all our services promote the principles of transparency and accountability. Our vision statement right now is to be an independent and credible audit institution, promoting transparency and accountability in the management of public resources for the well-being of the citizens. So this is how we've ensured that our strategic plan is aligned to the 8th National Development Plan. And also in terms of our mission, how do we achieve this vision? Our mission is to provide quality audit services, and in doing so we ensure that we are also promoting transparency and accountability. And those are one of the strategies that are outlined in the 8th National Development Plan. So that's how we've aligned the strategic plan. And in terms of our strategic objectives, to ensure that we achieve our vision and the mission, and ultimately to ensure that the 8th National Development Goals are achieved, we've provide quality audits to ensure that we improve their financial systems, the way they are managing the public resources. And so we've ensured that one of our strategic objectives is to also improve our audit services, the way we do our audits. So in doing that, we've ensured that we provide quality assurance as we do our audits. So the quality assurance function is the responsibility of quality assurance unit. We have a unit in place that's strictly responsible for ensuring that all the audits, the way they are being conducted, they are being conducted in accordance with the international auditing standards, and specifically for public sector international auditing standards. Then also the other strategic objective that we have is on stakeholder engagement. You may know that as we provide the audit services, we have so many stakeholders that have interest in our work, as well as in terms of how the public resources are being managed. So in doing that, we do engage with various stakeholders, and enhancing our human capital. Competent. Also, resources are provided to them to ensure that they do the work effectively. Yeah. So we have about 6 strategic objectives. So I've just mentioned a few of them.
All right. Interesting to hear. But I also want to, having talked about stakeholder engagement, you also bring in institutions like Parliament. Maybe you can also, for the sake of viewers and followers, explain to us how this cycle goes to its completion. Engagement with stakeholders, Parliament is involved, and then perhaps back to the executive or back to your office. How does a cycle of audit evolve and conclude?
Okay. So let me just say that cycle, we normally call it accountability triangle. It's a process of ensuring that there is accountability in the management of public resources. So the way the triangle is structured, it starts with Parliament. When Parliament appropriates the funds to the various ministries and other public entities to go and spend to ensure that the development goals are achieved. Once those funds are appropriated, the ministries, the entities will spend those monies, and after spending, there's supposed to be oversight in the way those resources are being spent. So that's where the Office of the Auditor General comes in now to provide that oversight. So we go in to do the audits to ensure that the way the resources were spent, they were spent according to the intended purposes. So after auditing, we produce the Auditor General's report. After we produce the Auditor General's report, that report, according to the Constitution, under Article 212 of the Constitution, the Auditor General is required to submit the report, the audit report, to the Republican President as well as the National Assembly. So National Assembly, they come in at the point where we submit the report to Parliament, and that report is deliberated upon by Parliament through the Public Accounts Committee. So in the deliberations of the Auditor General's report, the audit clients who are reported in the audit report are summoned to come and answer the queries that have been raised in the audit report. In doing so, they are being held accountable in terms of how they mismanage the resources, and action is supposed to be taken. So in the accountability triangles, like I've explained, it's with Parliament, then the Auditor General produces the audit report, and that report, when it's tabled in Parliament, the clients are summoned now to answer the queries that are in the Auditor General's report. And action involves also Ministry of Finance, because the chief controlling officer sits at Ministry of Finance, and that's the Secretary to the Treasury. So in that regard, Ministry of Finance is also responsible for ensuring that all the ministries that have been reported in the Auditor General's report ensure that the action is taken on the audit recommendations that are given by Parliament through the Public Accounts Committee. So in that regard, there is accountability which involves key stakeholders, which are Parliament, the Office of the Auditor General, as well as the Ministry of Finance, to ensure that the issues raised in the Auditor General's report are resolved.
Are we able to demonstrate how these key findings, the irregularities or the queries, if I may call them, into that triangle, at the end result of their disposal? How are these findings disposed of? Maybe Mr. Chitungu can pick that.
Okay, so one way is, I think my colleague, is what she has alluded to, the fact that all the controlling officers that appear in the Auditor General's report are required to come and make physical submissions before the Public Accounts Committee. And when all the reports that are in the Auditor General's report are discussed, the Public Accounts Committee then comes up with recommendations. In the recommendations, they will indicate what they think should be done. In some instances, the recommendations have been such that public officers must be disciplined. The controlling officer must discipline the public officers for negligence, for misappropriation of funds. And in some instances, the controlling officers themselves have been disciplined. And so and in some instances, unfortunately, some people have been, or is it fortunately, those that abuse public resources have been arrested. Okay, and so those are some of the the actions that the Public Accounts Committee then would make. There are also certain issues. For instance, I mentioned the fact that we also carry out forensic audits. So the forensic audits may not be put in the Auditor General's report, but then a report is then submitted to the law enforcement agencies. And so these pick it up from there. And we have seen in the past where people have been brought before the courts of law and they've been arrested. So the end result the end result in this process then in some instances hasn't been pleasant. But if it then demonstrates to us that it is a lesson for all of us that are public officers, that resources for the public must be dealt with in a certain way and not any way.
Maybe just
you want to chip in?
Yes, maybe just to add on to what you have said, and just to clarify, because we've heard from the public as we interact with the public, they would want to see the Office of the Auditor General go up to maybe having the cases be prosecuted. What the public or our stakeholders should understand is that our role as Office of the Auditor General is reporting according to the mandate, yes, and not to prosecute. So we produce the audit reports, and that's where our role ends. And then other government agencies take up the role after our audit report is produced. And in that regard, but to ensure that action is taken, we've also entered into MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, with the law enforcement agencies. And some of them are the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Drug Enforcement Commission, as well as Financial Intelligence Center. We've entered into MOUs with them because we know that they have the role to take the audit issues further in terms of investigation, as well as having prosecution.
So you can raise a red flag or maybe playing a role of a whistleblower,
if you may say so.
All right.
Yes,
interesting.
yeah.
We have followers on Facebook. For example, Peter Mufalo writes and says, we want to make grassroots contributions from observations in what these institutions are doing. And maybe I will take you, Mr. Chitumbo, to yet taking into consideration what Peter says. Is there a legal framework and also a structure responsive that leads to the responsiveness of the needs of the people? As you have talked about, first of all, the constitutional provision which establishes the office. Maybe you can also outline the legal framework that is responsive to the needs of the people.
Okay, so like we have discussed when we talked about the mandate of the Office of the Auditor General, and also my colleague has also alluded to the fact that the Office of the Auditor General is spread across the country. I reminded me of the fact that when I joined the office, there were just about 4 regional offices, but we have 10 now in every province. We have what this then means, and that is also provided for, I think, in the Constitution, which my colleague has alluded to, where it talks about the Office of the Auditor General being progressively decentralized to the province and eventually to the district. Yes, now we are decentralized to the provincial headquarters. In future, funds, resources permitting, we should be able to decentralize to some of the key districts where there are a lot of economic activities. But then what this then means is, by having officers in the district, in the province, it would have been different. It's different actually from where we are coming from, where we have we had a few officers. The fact that we have officers in all the 10 provinces, then we have presence in each province, and our auditors then are able to appreciate the local environments, and they are able to, like I mentioned earlier, that audits also involves physical verification of some of the issues that our clients claim to have done. And so the more we have them in the provinces, it then means that we will not just end at writing reports based on progress reports, but then we will be able to see for ourselves, and we'll also be able to interact with the citizens who are the beneficiaries of these programs that government has implemented. And they are able to tell us, in some instances we have had situations because of our work that structures have been constructed and completed, but they are not in use, and the citizens are pointing at those structures and wondering why they are built if they are not going to be opened and used. So these issues then, you see, with that kind of interaction, because as an auditor basically we know what is the objective, what is the end of this project, and we would want to see that project serve the communities. That so if it's not, we are then able to report on such failure to use those structures. So what then this means is that the office, through these structures, that the fact that we have structures right up to the province, we are able to interact with the citizens, and this then enhance our planning for audits. If that current audit has not captured certain things, but through our interaction with the citizens, we are able to plan in the next audit so that we take care of their concerns. So the fact that this is provided for in the Constitution, then it means that the time that we will not have an office, for instance, in Kawe, then we'll be going against the Constitution. So then secondly, maybe I must also mention the fact that in Article 249 there is a requirement, sorry, it's not 249, it's 50, where it talks about the guarantee of the independence of the Auditor General, in the sense that the Auditor General is not supposed to be subject to the control of any person or authority in conducting our activities. And so because of that, we freely pick on what we want to audit. So in the office we have what we call a risk profiling arrangement, where we profile all the public institutions, and those we consider, in profiling them, we consider issues like the size of the budget, the actual expenditure, the public interest in those institutions. We also look at issues that have been reported in the past in the press, negative reports. And so when we profile, then we identify those institutions and categorize them into high risk, medium risk, and low risk. And priority then is given to those institutions that have categorized as high risk institutions. Then once we are done with those, we go to those institutions that are medium. By that then we make sure that the big institutions, those that receive the biggest chunk of our resources, are audited thoroughly, year in and year out. However, I must also mention that that is not to say that the arrangement is perfect, we probably would have wanted to see more independence than we are currently enjoying at the moment, because we may have that guarantee of independence in terms of choosing whatever we do. But in terms of financial resources, we are just like any other government institution, subject to ceilings provided by the Ministry of Finance. We also, our staff are recruited by the Public Service Commission. So in the organization, the international organization called International Organization for Supreme Audit Institutions, to which the Office of the Auditor General subscribes, there is a requirement to enhance independence in all these aspects. In some countries, in some jurisdictions, this is enhanced by, for instance, the Office of the Auditor General being an officer of Parliament, okay, being an officer of the National Assembly, and then once he submits budget, then that budget to any ceilings, because then the Auditor General has determined that I want to audit these institutions and this is my budget. Yeah, so if we can move towards such an arrangement, that would then enhance the independence of the Auditor General.
In your mission statement, the word independent pops up. In your explanation, independence keeps coming up. Are you able to just explain to us, basically, Ms. Matimba, how you have demonstrated, for the sake of public confidence, the independence of the Office of the Auditor General?
Okay, I think Mr.
Especially in the implementation of your operational plans.
Yes. My colleague has briefly mentioned how we've ensured that the office is independent. According to Article 250, subsection 2, it states that the Auditor General shall not be subject to any control or direction of any person or authority in terms of conducting his duties. So
the question that is, have you passed this integrity test?
We have. So he has mentioned that in the selection of the audits, we are independent. We select, the Auditor General selects the audits without any direction or control. So meaning in that we are able to choose which audits, and the selection of the audits, it's also dependent on the resources, the availability of resources. So in terms of when you say have we successfully implemented our independence, I may say it's partial. It's partial implementation.
So
reason being that we are still a part of the civil service, and therefore we are subjected to, for example, budget ceilings through Ministry of Finance. So in terms of the financial capacity to enable us conduct the audits is also dependent on the ceilings that have been given to us to operate within.
So won't that still be control? Because if I want to limit you so that you don't hit where it matters, I squeeze your budget. Doesn't that still mean you are still under control of some?
In that regard, we are not independent. We are not independent. And also, like my colleague also mentioned, when it comes to administrative function, in terms of managing our human resource, we are also still subject to the civil service. So we cannot recruit the numbers that we may desire to enable us do our work effectively. and therefore in that regard we are not fully independent.
You've touched it, but our follower on Facebook also says, maybe you can just amplify a little bit on it, and says, if funding and recruitment is from the government, how then is the office really independent? Because at some points activities can be interfered, maybe taking. That's an opinion that one of our followers on Facebook, as you explain, the element of independence, the hindrances, what you think you can do better on, maybe you can, for the benefit of this comment and our followers and viewers on Facebook. Unfortunately, we don't have a line to this week. In the coming programs, we'll be able to invite viewers and listeners to participate on this program. Today we are using our followers on Facebook.
Okay, so maybe just to give assurance to the public and our stakeholders, is that we've also made efforts as an office to ensure that we have adequate resources. So we have actually in our strategic plan, one of our strategic objectives is to enhance our resource mobilization. So we do mobilize resources also through our donors. We have financial donors, and we also do receive technical support from our donors. So the support from the donors has helped us to increase our financial capacity as well as our technical capacity to enable us carry out our work effectively. So we don't just depend on government resources. We also depend on donor resources, and I must say that we've received a lot of support from the donor community because they are also interested in governance, in ensuring that there's good governance, and since our office plays a key role in good governance in terms of public financial management, we've received a lot of support in that area.
Okay. Maybe as we come to the end of the program, Mr. Chitumbo, before I come back or should it have been ladies first, then to Mr. Chitumbo, but we open with Mr. Chitumbo and we'll close with Ms. Matimba. Public confidence is a very important office in the governance system. What assurance do people walk away with from this program with regard to public confidence that this institution means well and it's an important office in the Republic of Zambia?
Okay, so like we have mentioned, the fact first and foremost that we, in terms of selecting what work we do, we are very independent, and also one way that we try to enhance that independence is with the resources that we have. Then we can we identify which are the more serious institutions that may have serious issues that need to be addressed. So by that we know that anywhere in the world resources will always be limiting, and so we must find a way to maximize the resources. And so by the process that I described in terms of risk profiling and identifying which institutions we must first take care of, then that guarantees our citizens that the more important institutions, for instance, not to say that other ministries are not as important, but I'll give an example that if we look at the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Health, those are the key ministries, and we make sure that those ministries, we have resources for them and we audit them whatever the situation is. And so that is, by that process, then the Auditor General makes sure that those institutions are actually audited, and we also have a way of ensuring that those institutions that we probably have not audited in a particular year are given priority then in subsequent years. And so, however way you look at it, we will still go to all the institutions eventually. And so we should be able to cover them and bring out issues. Like I said, our office ensures that we state things as they are.
Right, and maybe in closing, Ms. Matimba, currently we have some form of audit report. This is a select committee that is considering a special audit report, basically looking for a period, I think 202, somewhere there.
205.
205 up to 205 up to 2012, somewhere there. I need to check those facts, and this is a special report that comes from your office. What is the word to the public?
The word to the public is that there are certain audits that would want to make sure that we conduct audits on those areas, especially where there's a lot of interest from the stakeholders or from the public, and hence you will realize that certain audits, they go way back to ensure that an audit is done on and provide assurance to the public that this is what transpired. So in this case, that's the reason why maybe that audit was done for that period. And as it is being tabled before the select committee, the public will be satisfied that this is what transpired, and action will be taken.
All right. It leaves me then to say thank you so much for making an appearance on our first program in the Jan of 13.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you are, viewers and listeners and our followers. Our first program, Auditor and You program on television and radio, has come to an end. I was privileged to have Mr. Shadrack Chitumbo, the Director, Ministerial Appropriations Audits Directorate, and Ms. Cynthia Matimba, Chief Planner, were my guests, and we've come to the end of our program. My name is Julius Musmani, your presenter, and on sign language we had Chola Kawama. And on behalf of the entire production team, we sincerely want to thank you all for following and watching and equally listening. Join next week on Thursday.
In this land, beauty all around, there is no other. Love like a mother's love for her child. Oh, there's nobody gonna take our peace away. There's no day what is people to share. This land, Zambia, land of the strong, home of the brave, our land, Zambia, free men we stand. In this land, ooh, I believe the better days are surely coming, and I believe that we can make it through the night. If we lay pride aside, put a trust in God, learn to love each other, you my sister, you're my brother. Right or wrong, together we are stronger. So don't let nothing tear us apart. Zambia, land of the strong, home of the brave, our land, Zambia, free
Zambia. Even saying the word is a multi-sensory experience. It somehow captures something of the essence of this special place in the warm heart of southern Africa. Take in the mighty Zambezi River, the majestic Victoria Falls that form Zambia's natural southern border, and the national parks overflowing with wildlife. Immerse yourself in the fast-growing towns and cities, teeming with history, light, and life. Then visit the vast lakes that seem to touch the stars and engage with the plethora of different ethnic groups, cultures, and languages. Together, they make up the intricately woven fabric of this remarkable country. To visit Zambia is to begin a love affair that will never be exhausted, and unlike any that you have ever experienced before. For all the superlatives that man has used in his attempts to describe Victoria Falls, none are able to do this incredible natural wonder justice. You have to see it for yourself. It is a truly awe-inspiring experience. Livingstone, once Zambia's capital, and the Zambian side of the falls have become a mecca for discerning adventure tourists. Peer into the abyss from Devil's Pool at the edge of the falls. Career down the powerful rapids from Batoka Gorge in a whitewater raft. Bungee jump from the historic Victoria Falls Bridge. Or fly over the falls on a flight of angels. Whatever activity you choose, you'll be left with a renewed appreciation for the sheer might of nature. Kafue National Park is amongst the biggest in Africa and is home to more than 130 species of mammal and more than 400 bird species. Enjoy the wildlife from a different perspective on a boat cruise or a canoeing or walking safari. For sheer density of game, South Luangwa